Hey everyone, and welcome to the Doctor Who Season 3 Retrospective from 1965 to 1966. Following the third season, of the first Doctor. This was an interesting season. One of the issues that I faced in the past was the loss of some episodes to time and space, unfortunately. But with this season, I did, doing my searching, I did find a group known as Doctor Who Recons, who has done some computer animated reconstructions of episodes with the dialogue dubbed over them. In the past, I found a couple things where it was just stills with the dialogue dubbed over. That's not nearly as appealing. But thanks to this, I at least have some animation to go with the words and dialogue. And to be honest, while at times it is a bit rough in my opinion, it's something at least. And they do excellent work, and they should be applauded for that. So if you're interested in seeing old episodes of Doctor Who that are not around anymore, check out DoctorWhoRecons.com. I'll put an annotation and a link above my head. With that said, let's get into Season 3 of Doctor Who. First off, I'll do some quick arc synopses with some minor thoughts behind, and then I'll talk about, my recommendations, and really quick, just some companion notes. So, Season 3 starts with the first serial known as Galaxy 4. Basically, the Doctor and crew land on a very arid planet, with a group of, beautiful alien women, and another group that they never really get to see. There's some conflict between these two alien races because one has a spaceship that is nearly ready to go, and there's another group, and the other group, wants to get on that ship as well, but there's something not quite right about one of the groups. And it leads to, a question of who do we trust, and who do we help to get off of the planet? It's an interesting arc. For the most part, it's CGI reconstructions. Just bear that in mind. But, I enjoyed it. It was a good start to the season. The second serial, which is just a one-off episode known as The Mission to the Unknown. Basically, this doesn't even follow the Doctor's crew. It follows a group of 3 astronauts trying to get a message back to Earth. It's the year 4000, if I recall. And the Daleks have returned to our galaxy and are trying to, invade the Earth and conquer the universe. It's an interesting arc, and it sets up the 4th arc of the season, known as the Daleks' Master Plan. If you're not interested in the Daleks' Master Plan, you could honestly just skip this episode and you wouldn't really miss much. I thought it was interesting and cool, and definitely worth a watch, though. The next serial we have is known as The Mythmakers. Basically, this is just ancient Greek history, the invasion of Troy and the Trojan horse and all of that. The Doctor and crew land, the Doctor steps out of the TARDIS and he is mistaken for Zeus. After dealing with the Greek army for some time, they realize, okay, maybe he's not a god, but you're going to have to help us break into Troy or we're going to kill you. So, it's interesting. History. But, yeah. And then another important thing that happens here is Vicky leaves the crew. Basically, she and Steven at one point were captured, taken into Troy, and Vicky falls in love with a Trojan soldier. She ultimately opts to stay behind, but sends along a girl named Katerina in her place. Basically, a Greek handmaiden. Or, I don't know, some serving girl, basically. As you're about to find out, she's not very important because she doesn't last very many episodes. And honestly, the writers justified this because, she was from, I forget when the Trojan War was, but basically, she didn't understand any modern concepts, so the writers wanted to quickly write her out of the series. It's a bit harsh, but I understand it. Which leads us to the Daleks' Master Plan. A follow-up to the mission to the Unknown, the Daleks have returned to our universe and are consciously working toward taking over the galaxy. They've worked on a device known as the Time Destructor and have aligned themselves with different alien races because they could contribute some components for the machine. A human known as Maverick Chen contributes an element known as duridium, I think it's called. They don't give a spelling, but basically it's the power source for the device. The Doctor and crew come into possession of this material and are being chased, like they were in Season 2 for the chase. They do lose Katarina early on, but they do pick up a new companion, Sarah, basically a military officer who joins up with the crew, after she chases them, but is ultimately convinced that they are trying to help protect the universe from the Daleks and all these other villains. It's an interesting arc. It has a lot going on in it, and it's 12 episodes long. Compared to the other arcs, which for the most part are like 4 episodes, it felt like to me it dragged on a bit. It does raise the stakes a bit though, because it does have the deaths of 2 TARDIS companions. The first is Katarina, the ancient Greek, serving girl, and the second, unfortunately, is Sarah. Also in this, it brings back from the arc known as the Time Meddler, the monk, another Time Lord that the Doctor had stranded back in 1066. It was somewhere with Vikings, but basically that character returned and was out for some revenge during this. I feel like some things they could have put in their own arcs, like the Time Meddler returns could be in its own little arc, and the Dalek thing could have been its own thing. But they combine things together, and it's kind of jumbled, but an interesting arc nonetheless. And it's cool to see the Daleks move up in master plans. From trying to conquer this planet to conquering Earth to conquering an entire universe. Working with their allies. Moving forward, we go into the Massacre of St. Bartholomew's Eve, another history arc which takes place in Paris, France in 1572. I'm not much of a history buff, but basically there was major conflict between the Catholics and Protestants, in 1572 France, and that's like the big story over this. Although it does have some interesting bit with the Doctor very greatly physically resembling one of the religious higher up figures. I don't know, I didn't care for it as much, but if you're into history, you might enjoy it. Moving on, we get into the arc. The Doctor, Stephen, and their new friend Dodo, who popped in at the last episode of The Massacre of St. Bartholomew's Eve, end up in the year, I want to say I believe it's 10 million. Basically, what's left of Earth has left the planet Earth because, it was dying and they need to find another habitable planet. Unfortunately, their new friend, the Doctor's new friend Dodo, brings the common cold with her onto the ship, which is something they have not had to deal with for millions of years. So the people on the ship start to get sick, and unfortunately, a couple of people do die from this. So it's up to the Doctor to help cure the people and stop this outbreak before it kills everyone. But they wrap this conflict up in 2 episodes of this 4-episode arc. And what makes this cool is, they leave in the TARDIS, but then they come back to the place 700 years later, when the ship is supposed to finally be landing at the new, home for humanity. And there's some conflict there. I'm not going to spoil that, but it's cool and interesting and definitely worth a look. After this, we move on to another arc I really liked, the Celestial Toymaker. Basically, the Doctor and crew find themselves in this weird galaxy where there's this godlike being known as the Celestial Toymaker, who loves to just play games against whoever he can get his hands on. Stephen and Dodo are separated from the Doctor, and each group must play their own games to win their freedom, to find their way back to the TARDIS and hopefully escape from the toy room. And it's cool seeing Dodo and Stephen, in their situation, facing interesting riddles and quirky characters. The Doctor doesn't really has his own challenge, but it's just a very long mind game that, I don't know. It's interesting though. Moving forward, we go to the Gunfighters. Basically, this takes place in the American Old West, the 1800s. And it has big characters like Wyatt Earp, Doc Holliday, and other Western outlaws. Basically, it's, the face-off at the OK Corral. I found it interesting, and I'm not much of a history buff, like I said, but, in general, I think it was a cool, nice little arc, and worth a look. And then we move on to the Savages. Basically, this episode was just commentary on the upper class leeching off of the lower class, really quick. But there are two groups of people on this unknown planet. The Savages, who live out in the wilderness, and the upper class civilized society that live in this big city that run on this mysterious power source and seem to feed off of the Savages. Hint, hint. And basically, there's some serious conflict, and the Doctor and crew ultimately work to try and bring these two societies together. Rather than one feeding off the other, they can work together and work toward a better future. Unfortunately, in the end, the civilized society is essentially destroyed, and it's going to be hard bridging the gap between the Savages and the civilized people. And they want the Doctor to stay behind and help teach them and unite the peoples. He says that he cannot, but he feels that there is someone else that can. And he offers, he talks to Stephen about the idea. Stephen is hesitant at first, but he is ultimately convinced that, hey, you can do this. I believe in you, Stephen. And he opts to stay behind as something of an ambassador between the two peoples. And I'm sad at this because I started to like Stephen. Like, in the beginning, he was kind of a jerk and stubborn, in my opinion, but he was a good character. And, it stinks that he left, but he had good reason. Finally, we end up on the last arc of the season, known as the War Machines. The Doctor and Dodo end up in 1966 London, at the base of a building where a giant, supercomputer is being built. The supercomputer is known as Wotan, and is so scientifically advanced, and is about to be connected, globally, like to government institutions like, the Pentagon in the United States, or the British Parliament, or, other facilities. So it can be some kind of, consultant. It doesn't have human emotion, and it's, works through everything logically and faster than any human or computer could. Unfortunately, due to this brain power, it has come to the ultimate conclusion: humanity is no longer necessary, and plans to eradicate humanity from the globe. So, to that end, it starts to use hypnosis to get people under its control to help build war machines. Basically, these look like Dalek-like machines, but they're not linked at all, oddly enough. That would have been a cool little thing, I feel like, but yeah, so it's up to the Doctor, Dodo, and some new allies to help stop these machines before they can destroy the world. And honestly, I think this is probably my least favorite arc of the season. Because, well, for a couple of reasons. Number one, the conclusion is so rushed. Literally, the last, 5 minutes of the episode, oh, hey, we got everything figured out, and we're setting the plan in motion. If they had cut some of the fat from the Dalek's master plan, they could have made this, a bit better. But it is how it is. Second, there are some plot issues, I feel like. The big thing is the two new companions, Ben and Polly, and how they, ultimately get out of the TARDIS. It really bothered me. And basically, I'm just going to spoil it. The Doctor had, at some point, given Ben a key. Ben and Polly, say goodbye to the Doctor, and Polly's like, oh, we should return this key to him, and they're like, yeah, but they meet him outside of the TARDIS, and they notice that it's locked. This key fits the TARDIS. Why would you give this to this random character? Why? And also, Dodo, decides to stay behind in 1966 London. And it's not like, oh, Doctor, like, I'm just so fearful for my life of everything. Like, she's not even on screen for it. When Ben and Polly, come to say goodbye to the Doctor, oh, we got a letter from Dodo. Oh, I'm staying behind in London, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, God. Like, other people left for reasons, but Dodo's just, screw it, I'm out. And, I didn't see any notes, behind the scenes like, oh, this character wanted out that badly or something like that. But, whatever. But, honestly, this arc kind of pissed me off, to be honest. And then really quick, just to go back over my notes, for the history arcs, which I will put to the side here, we have the Mythmakers, the Greek-Trojan War, the Massacre of St. Bartholomew's Eve, Paris, France, 1572, conflict between the Catholics and Protestants, and the Gunfighters, fighting between, the fight at the OK Corral, Wyatt Earp, Doc Holliday, etc. Long term maybe would be the Daleks Master Plan, because it involves the Daleks and the escalation of their world conquering plans, from planets to Earth to our universe. And then for those who are interested in the stories of the companions, the Mythmakers, because it involves the departure of Vicky, the Daleks Master Plan, because it involves the deaths of Katerina and Sarah, and the Savages, which involves the departure of Stephen. And also you could say the War Machines, because that's when Dodo leaves, and Ben and Polly get sucked into the story. In terms of entertaining arcs that I would definitely highly recommend, The Celestial Toymaker is going to be my number 2, because while it's fun and interesting, we have some quirky characters, it doesn't really do anything plot-wise. It's just, oh hey, play this game against these quirky characters, play this game against these quirky characters, etc. So, it's fun and interesting, but it doesn't do a lot. The arc, though, it does, in my opinion. We have this conflict that the Doctor and crew create and resolve, and they come back to another conflict that they have to deal with that they could have technically caused, if you think about it. And finally, my companion notes. Peter Purves, who played Stephen Taylor, from episode 77 to episode 122. After leaving Doctor Who, he became a regular presenter on a children's magazine program known as Blue Peter from 1967 to 1978. And interestingly, had a small comic role in The Chase as an American tourist known as Morton Dill. Basically, they end up on top of, I think it's the Empire State Building or some other skyscraper, and there's some comical character, so I believe it's him. Jackie Lane, who played Dodo, joined in episode 106 and left by episode 126. She went on to become a theatrical agent and manager of Jackie Lane Ad Voice, and represented Tom Baker, the 4th Doctor. That's cool and interesting. I really liked it. Jean Marsh, who played Sarah Kingdom, the security office in the Daleks Master Plan. Basically, her character was there when the Doctor had activated the Time Destructor to, destroy like a small area, probably about 40 or 50 yards, like in every direction. Unfortunately, she was caught in the blast and was ultimately turned to dust, or to a skeleton. It was a CGI reconstruction, so they couldn't really convey what it was, but yeah. She created the television series Upstairs, Downstairs, and played Maid Rosebuck in that show. And then we have Adrian Hill, who played Katarina, from the end of the Mythmakers, the 4th episode, to the 4th episode of the Daleks' Master Plan. I don't have a lot for her, besides she unfortunately passed away in 1997 of cancer. And like I said earlier, her character was killed off because she was, an ancient character who wouldn't have understood any of the modern things that they were dealing with. So it was just a matter of convenience to kill off her character. Looking at Season 3, it definitely has its ups and downs, certainly. It has some cool characters that they introduced that unfortunately do not make another reappearance, which is kind of irritating, and some arcs, weren't as engaging or interesting to me. But if you're interested in the story of the first Doctor, it's definitely worth watching, I would say. And going into Season 4, I've looked ahead, I know some things occur, and I'm kind of hesitant to go into it. I know some things that are going to happen, and it's going to be a challenge, and it's going to open a can of worms for me in terms of videos that I plan on doing for Doctor Who now. But I have to press on. But to give you some quick tidbits about Season 4, we see the passing of the first Doctor, the regeneration, so we have the second Doctor introduced. We also have the Cybermen are introduced, another staple Doctor Who villain. And yeah, so definitely Season 4 is going to be interesting. So, with that said, everyone, I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you picked up some interesting stuff from here, and I hope to see you when I talk about Season 4, as well as, the first Doctor, William Hartnell, the actor, and the companions of the first Doctor, because all those things feel like they're relevant and interesting. So, until next time, everyone, have fun, stay safe, and remember, every character has a story to tell. I'm Valiant Bradley James, Character Investigator. Peace. Alright, next time on The Character Investigator. Well, guys, I have some unfortunate news for my next video. I'd heard at the end of April 2017 that a voice actor had passed away. His name was Edward Blaylock, and he voiced Master Makarov from Fairy Tail, as well as Sengoku from One Piece, and I want to say Führer Bradley from Full Metal Alchemist. I want to say both series. So, because of that, I wanted to do a character spotlight on him. He had a wonderful, very iconic voice that I really liked. And I want to send a quick shout out to my friend Ryan for pointing this out to me. And I will talk to him before I start recording that video to get his thoughts and opinions, because he did offer to help me out with that. So, that is going to be the June 30th video. The character spotlight of Edward Blaylock. He was a good guy, and unfortunately he did pass away, and Fairy Tail is also ending from what I've heard. As of this recording in May, we are 2 volumes away from the end of the series. So it also seems an appropriate time with that soon ending as well. So stay tuned for that. I'll put the annotation to the side. Was what that gesture was. As for First Wave, I'm not going to keep announcing that it's going to be coming, because I don't want to put all the pressure on Patrick, because he's in he's moving currently, so I'm not going to keep hounding about that. No, it is out there. For those of you who are interested, it will come out, and I will post about it, and we'll try and get through all 3 seasons of the show, because if we can get this to work, I would like to try and do like an annual thing with Patrick, at least 1 or 2 videos every year, talking about shows that he has a major interest in, that we can both collaborate on and discuss and look at, because it would be interesting to do. And because he has shown the interest in helping out with the channel, I'd like to do that. So, first wave will be coming soon. After he's done moving and we get everything figured out. And also maybe more Sentinels of the Universe, Sentinels of the Multiverse videos. So again, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, feel free to like, comment, or subscribe to my channel. Yeah. So till next time, guys. Have fun, stay safe. I'll catch you next time. Peace.